This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rick Davis. I'm in the chair tonight, and it is, believe it or not, October the 2nd. October the 2nd. And thank you to our sponsors. I have been busily working on our sponsor schedule all afternoon, and I'm seeing double from that. To make sure we can get to all of our sponsors again and have them renew. And they are, um, well, we got Pfizer and Janssen, who technically are out of sponsorship, I just found out. But I'm sure they're going to renew. We got Janssen, we've got Foundation Medicine, we've got Telix, we've got Blue Earth, and we've got Sumitovant, who used to be Myovant, until they got 100% bought out by Sumitomo and Warren Buffett. And Jimmy's with us. Hello, Jimmy. So,
Also Bear.
um, so that's it. We're gonna pick up with Gary Z because he was the fourth man last week and we didn't quite get to him. And then we have one other new gentleman, Richard. And Richard, you'll see how we welcome our new men. We've got a little questionnaire that we go through, and then we'll give you enough time to talk about your issues. And just by the way, for everybody, there is a chat window. Most of you know it's the two little squares in the top right. And there will probably be a bunch of action in there over the course of the evening. And then, of course, we copy the transcript of the chat window to the recording. So however you pick up your recording, you'll find the chat window. Richard, no, sorry, Gary Z. Gary, how did you find us, by the way?
Yes. Rick, thank you. Thank you, Dr. John. Thank you, James Marshall. So I will answer your question, Rick. Just so you know, thanks to Mr. Marshall, I do have the AnCan checklist in front of me.
Oh, okay.
So your question is answered. It's thanks
There
to
you go. I got it.
James Marshall. So do you want me to just
Yes.
kind of go down the checklist?
And I'll ask you the questions, but you'll be
Okay.
ready for the answers.
Well,
Okay.
I no pressure, but I'm ready.
Okay. And are you since you came in through Gary through Jim Marshall, are you signed up already? Did you get the reminder this week?
I did. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So, Gary, how old are you?
I'm a week shy of age 66.
Clickety click.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you live?
Fairfax County, Virginia.
Okay. Another Delmarva guy.
Yes.
And when were you first diagnosed?
February of 2013.
Okay. And your Gleason score and PSA at the time of diagnosis?
I have in front of me my post-op report, so I'm going to refer to that. Okay, because the post-op meaning Da
Yep.
Vinci robotic. My Gleason was 8 on the post-op. I was diagnosed in February. I think the biopsy may have said estimated a 7, maybe.
Right.
Okay, so um, I had the biopsy, and I don't have that in front, so I don't remember. I don't remember how many of the things were positive, but I have the actual March 2013 radical prostatectomy post-op path report in front of me.
Okay. And that path report, um, did you show any uh, positive margins or
Yes.
invasion or anything else? What did you show? Tell us what it said.
Yeah. So the uh, extra prostatic extension, it says present, comma, multifocal, no seminal vesicle invasion. And
Okay,
I just, I actually had, my memory was faulty, but I'm happy to say, because I had told Mr. Marshall a few weeks ago that I think SVI was involved. It, in fact, is not.
good.
Um, so just a few more things. I'll just read straight off. Margins involved by invasive carcinoma, posterior right near base. Lymph vascular invasion present, perineural invasion present. The primary tumor was PT3A, Pat Tom 3A. Regional lymph nodes, no regional lymph node metastasis.
Okay,
5 lymph nodes examined, no lymph nodes involved.
okay. Let me cut you off there because it may be
Yeah.
TMI. I think we
Okay.
have enough. And but did you say that there was invasion at the base?
The words are, yes, it says margin involved by posterior right near base, BASE.
Yeah, near base. Okay. So that means for those of you who don't know, the prostate's upside down. So the base is at the top and the apex is at the bottom. And the base is where it attaches to the bladder. So where you don't want invasion is at the base. So just mentioning, just saying that's so we know, or Gary might have known when he got this result that there was some issues for him to watch out for because there was already an issue at the base. What was your PSA when you were diagnosed?
Uh, I believe it was in the range of 2.5 to 3. I was the suspicion was on digital rectal exam at my annual physical. There was
Okay.
nothing in the PSA history that had caused my primary doc to, you know,
Right, right. The problem, I think, though, is that again, another suspicious factor is that if you're a 4+4 and you've got a low PSA like that, it also waves a red flag. Now, where did you get this robotic RP?
George Washington University, Washington, D.C., Jason
Okay,
Engel, Engel. It's,
got it.
uh, um,
Okay.
yeah,
And did they do any scans on you before you went into the RP?
I do not believe they did. I'm almost
Okay.
sure they did not.
Okay. Which is interesting because
But I,
it probably
I'm,
means you were a 3+4 originally, and then you turned out to be a 4+4. That's the only
yeah,
reason I can think that they wouldn't have scanned you going in.
Rick, I may be wrong. I may be wrong as far as the scan. Maybe they did.
Okay. So um, now we're in 2013. You've come back from your RP. How did you manage in your recovery from your RP with your with incontinence and ED? Any issues, or good or bad? How was it?
Nothing major. I chose to participate in a drug trial for incontinence. I got 2 free years worth of pads. This was my urologic surgeon. But
Yep,
after 3 or 4 months, I didn't even need the pads. So
great,
relatively, I mean, I would say it was very manageable.
good, 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 good. And did given the given the post-op pathology, did they talk to you about any immediate follow-up, any adjuvant treatment?
Very thorough discussion. Dr. Engel emphasized that, he was legally required to say to me that the basic standard of care would be to have, within 5 to 6 months, radiation. Um, uh, what is that called? As an adjuvant.
Adjuvant
Um,
radiation, yeah.
but he, and I tend, I tend to have I am at times an anxious person, but I really appreciate that he encouraged me to at least consider. He and I agreed, let's watch the PSA. He said, I feel if it goes like above 0.02 or 0.03, he said, I'm going to tell you to go get, radiation.
Okay, and what
Uh,
happened? What did it do?
I decided to not have the, I guess, adjuvant radiation. My PSA was undetectable until the fall of 2015,
Okay,
at which time it began to rise. I, uh, got the referral to the radiation at the Shar, Inova, Fairfax, Virginia. I started the ADT like a couple months, and I had what was it, 40 business days of intensity modulated radiotherapy, and so I was on ADT concurrent with that. The radiation occurred in April and May of 2016.
okay, so you had 40 sessions of IMRT with how long a period of ADT?
It was at least, I would say, it was 6 to 9 months of concurrent ADT.
Okay, now before they did the ADT, did they do any scans?
Yes, thank you. I absolutely, they
Okay, and
did.
what did they see? What did they see on those scans before they
Nothing,
started?
nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Bone scan, abdomen, and chest.
Okay, so everything was clear. You did 6 to 9 months ADT, and what did they radiate? Did they radiate the whole pelvic girdle?
I believe the answer is yes, Rick. The incredible computerized technology. If I remember correctly, it was very, very much about the pelvic, girdle. It wasn't, it was very focused on. I
Right.
think the answer is yes to your question. I
Okay.
just,
Now,
I,
so that
I don't
so
have
that
the
takes.
exact. Sorry.
And how high was your PSA before they started the radiation?
The highest it got was um, 0.9, 0.9.
0.9. Okay. Now tell us, now keep on going and tell us what happened after 2000, after fall of 2015, 2016. What's happened since then?
Yeah, so after the spring of 2016 radiation, undetectable PSA until um, July of 2017. The first test, it was 0.05, and um, I think I might have had another PSA like 3 to 4 weeks later, and I think it maybe had risen to 0.08. So obviously a trend was established, and I went again on ADT at that point.
So you went back on ADT in when was that?
That would have been about September of 2017.
Okay, and what did you go on?
I was on whatever the assurance allowed, which I think was the other one besides Lupron, injection in
Okay.
the abdomen, 3-month dosage.
Was it
I'm sorry. So, it was, I'm forgetting the name of, at least at that time, the other common
okay?
one that's not named Lupron.
It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to hurry along because we got another gent and we got a bunch of people. So I just want
Yes.
to get the picture.
Thank you.
So um, and and what was your PSA when you went back on the ADT?
Yeah, I think within 2 months or not more than 3, it was back down to undetectable.
How high did it get before you went on the ADT?
It has never risen above 0.09 since my journey began in 2013.
Okay, great, 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 great. And so since have you been on ADT continuously since then? Have you taken holidays? Have you had any?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes to holiday. And let me just, uh, I'll try to make this quick because I realize it's 8:28 on the East Coast. Uh, I would say the first year, I was, man, after that 3-month interval, I was back getting another 3-month dosage of Lupron or its equivalent. After about a year and a half, I told my oncologist, hey, you know, how do you feel if I took like a 6-week vacation? In other words, observe an elapsed time of 4.5 months on this 3-month dose. She said fine because the medicine kind of lasts a little bit longer. So let's say over the next year, let's say it brings it up to 2019, 2020. I started observing, let's call it quasi intermittent or intermittent light. I would I would observe a holiday of 2 months. So I would observe a 5-month elapsed time on a 3-month dosage. The PSA, so um, all that time. So what I'm trying, let me conclude this way. So from roughly, let's say early 2018 until July of 2023, my PSA was undetectable. The
And you were
other,
doing so, and you were doing five. Basically, you were doing 6 months on about 4 months worth of, or 5 months on about 3 months worth. Is
well, there's more
who?
there's more. Just one, I'm sorry, Rick, but just there's more to the story. So in 20, let me do the math. Yeah, in 20, fairly early in 2021, I went back to see Jason Engel for various reasons. He strongly encouraged me to talk to my oncologist, Jenny Aragon Cheng, about doing a true intermittent. And so, to conclude my story, in July of this year, my PSA rose to uh, 0.02. So I was able to go 2 3/4 years off of any ADT, and the PSA remained undetectable, and my testosterone went from very low during that time. I think for about the last 9 months, maybe closer to 12 months, it started to be in the clinically relevant range of above. I think it's above 250, and it kind of fluctuated between
So
250 and 400.
just for clarification, then, when was the last time that? When did you go see Engel again?
Um,
What day?
that was all right. This is October 2023. I went almost 3 years, so that means it would probably been the summer of 2020 when I saw
Okay, so
Engel.
and so from the summer of 2020 until July of this year, you were on a break.
Oh, Rick, I'm
When
sorry,
did
your
you?
audio cut out.
Okay, when did you? When was the? when was the last time you got a hormone therapy shot?
Right. I believe it was probably in, let's say I would say the May, let's just call it May 2020, because I know for a fact
It's
I've been
okay.
off
It's
the,
okay.
okay,
Don't worry. That's
sorry,
close enough.
I'm
Okay.
a little
So
OCD, sorry.
so May of 2020 was the last time until. And are you still on a holiday?
I am, I'm gonna get a lab this week. Um, Aragon
Okay.
Cheng, the oncologist, I've already, got a traditional bone
Okay.
scan,
Okay.
chest F,
Okay.
okay,
Okay. Okay.
okay,
Time out. So May of
yeah.
20 May of 2020 was the last time. And what is your current PSA?
The test was, I think it was it was 0.0258, but that's about 5 weeks ago. So
Point.
I need to go this week,
Okay.
and
So
I will
point
go this
zero
week.
two five point zero
Excuse,
two five eight is
excuse
current.
me, Rick. I have that decimal point in a different place. I don't know which is correct. I have the last PSA as 0.25.
Uh, yes, doctor, it's less than a whole number. Yes, thank you. It's 0.25. I'm sorry, I think I did misspeak.
Okay, so right now you're at 0.258. You haven't had any hormone therapy since May of 20. So that's over
Correct.
3 years, which is great. And you're going to go see Aragon Ching and you're going to decide what to do. What questions do you have for us?
Okay, and Mr. Marshall helped just focus me that Medicare, I'm on Medicare. Medicare will pay for the PSMA PET scan. I have been approved for the PSA. So again, gentlemen, thank you. I thank you. You've been extremely patient. My question, Aragon Cheng says, yeah, that's great. You've been approved for PET scan, but sometimes, they will only approve it once a year. I have to assume that, because it's a
Okay,
Gleason 8, unfortunately, my trend.
okay, okay, okay,
So
okay,
should
okay.
I get, should I
Don't
get,
assume. Don't assume.
yes,
All right,
assumptions
so,
are the
sorry,
mothers
but
of mess up.
don't assume, Gary, because they will approve it more than once a year if your doctor says it's necessary.
Okay,
This is sometimes the doctor speaking because we've seen it. So all we need to do at this point is figure out where your PSA, where the metastasis is coming from. And if it were me, given the recent papers that we've seen by Dr. D'Amico and Peter Carroll et al., it doesn't make sense to wait until it goes up higher. And we can share those papers with you and you can present them to Aragon
oh,
Ching or
thank
whatever her
you.
name is. Okay? But
Deep thanks.
we can do that. But if it were me, and you can ask the other guys, I would see if I got a result. We never used to say that. 6 or 8 months ago, we weren't saying it, but there's good research that's come out of Dana-Farber and UCSF feels that the risk of waiting until you're up around zero point 0.5 is not worth it.
Okay,
And that you
thank
should
you.
do it. And if you come negative, you get another one. And they actually said, here's the paper you can present to the payer if the payer declines.
Thank you
So
very much.
that's why we don't need to listen to what Aragon Chang says. If she's telling you you may not get another one, we'll work with you, and if necessary, we'll work with Aragon Chang, and we'll put her in touch with Peter Carroll, and she needs to be ready to ask for more than one PSMA if you don't get a result.
Well, deep thanks to you and
Oh,
everyone at AnCan.
okay. Guys, if somebody can find that paper, it'd be great, and put the link in the chat window for Gary. If one of you has it, because it's hard for me to find it whilst I'm moderating. But we've disseminated that information in a reminder and in other places, and we definitely have it. And if it doesn't go in the chat window, I'll try and send it to you later.
At your convenience. Thank you.
Okay.
Who's the author, Rick? Who's the first
So,
author?
I don't remember. I only remember the last author was Amico,
Okay.
D'Amico, and Peter Carroll was the second to last author. Sorry, John. Okay. Anybody want to chime in and give their opinion on PSMA scans or things that Gary should definitely cover? Thanks, Gary P. I think Gary's, there you go. Gary's put the great reference in there for you. So double click on that. And that will also, the reference to the actual paper is in the MedPage Today article. So you've got both, you'll have that and the MedPage Today article. But that's a good commentary.
Excellent. Saving it to my hard drive right now.
Yeah, and it's it starts off focusing us on this issue that AnCan Chang is saying, well, you can't get more than one in a year. It's bullshit. Excuse my French. She gets.
Mais oui, monsieur.
She gets a demerit for that.
Hey, Gary, it's
okay, well,
John.
just between us and the fence post, I hear you.
Okay.
Gary, you didn't happen to get any kind of genetic testing, did you?
I did, doctor. I have the genetic test from September of 2019. It's Embr genetics. I mean, this was done through Inova oncology genetics, if that helps.
Okay, was this a germline test? Was this to test if you had inherit? This was, if it was Embr, it was to test inherited. Did you have any mutations?
No.
Great. Okay. Not. So, guys, would you like to talk to Gary? What do we feel he should be bringing up to Dr. AnCan Chang? Any takers?
Well, first, this is John. First question is it time to intensify the treatment? And that will partly be based, I suppose, on the PET scan and whether your next PSA is the same or higher or lower.
Okay, thank you.
Look, you're obviously, nobody wants the disease to recur. Somebody with a little knowledge looking at your post-pathology results would have predicted that it probably would recur. And had you run the nomogram, they probably would have told you that there was a something like a 70 or 80% chance it would recur within 5 years, and you beat that. So you're doing really, really well. But it's not a surprise because it was at the base. It was moving into the bladder at the time. You were a low PSA guy with a 4+4. A lot of reasons you waited several years, 3 years, 2 years to do your salvage. So I think you're in great shape. I mean, given what you've got, you're in great shape. The issue now for me is exactly what John says. How hard do you want to hit this? And we can't tell you, we can't even give you the standard of care until we know what the PSMA says. But if you've just got some minor spots that they can see, you have a couple of options. One is just to do some spot radiation, and the other is to do spot radiation with some hormone therapy, in the hope that you can nail what you've got now. Because what you don't want to do is to get it out of hand, and you may be able to manage this forever. So, there are some folks. I was talking about this with Jimmy earlier today, and with Ben last week. That there are some very well-respected people who do not believe in metastatic directed therapy. We think it's a great idea if you qualify. The issue is, what do you marry with that and how much? And I think that's what you need to ask the doc and come back and talk to us. We'll be a good sounding board for you. And but you're doing all the right things at this time.
Well, I appreciate deeply the encouragement, Rick, and all, but I just want to very quickly acknowledge with, you know, a lot of embarrassment that, you know, Dr. Engel, I don't recall Engel or Aragon Cheng, you know, talking about the proximity to bladder. But look, ultimately, I'm responsible, you know, for my journey, or for how I handle, you know, and go forward in the journey. So, you know, I also never asked the question, you know, okay, what does this mean, you know, about the base? So it's a very sobering, but ultimately, hopefully, you know, empowering information that you've provided me.
Okay. So look, I want to make sure we've got enough time for questions. We've got enough time for Richard. So is there anyone else who has anything they'd like to contribute to Gary before we move on? And don't beat yourself up. I mean, people don't know this stuff. We know it because we've learned it. We've learned it over the years. You know, I've been doing this since 2007, and
congratulations, my gosh.
Thanks. But the doctors should point that stuff like that out to you. They should be, Engel should have been telling you. So at the base, you're a low PSA guy with a high PSA. I mean, these are things that they should be pointing out. And if you say to them, they'll say, "Oh, I thought I told you that." You know? So,
yeah.
All right. Well, listen, come on in next week. And how come, I'm assuming you must be a veteran if you know Jim Marshall.
No, sir, I did not serve.
Oh,
Thank all who did.
I didn't think Jim knew anybody who wasn't a veteran. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, maybe you. Yes.
Yes, I am, because I am in 3 support groups, including a civilian one.
Okay.
I spread myself
Okay.
around.
Okay. I hope you shape up those civilians there. I thought maybe you walked into the thrift shop. That's how you found him. I'm never sure with Captain Marshall. But anyway, we're glad to have you, and we'll see you next week. Okay, Richard.
Yes, sir.
You've got the format. Richard, if you want to share your last name, you're very welcome. If not, you can send it to me in the chat window or however.
Well, my last name is Schneider, Schneider.
And I can tell you come from the Midwest. Where do you come from?
I'm from Highland Park, Illinois. That's a north suburb of Chicago.
Holland Park. Is that right? I've
Yes.
never heard of. I mean, I lived in Chicago. I know Chicago, but the only Holland Park that I know is on the west side of central London. I know
Now,
that.
now we're kind of known for the shooting during the 4th of July parade last year.
Oh, wait a
So,
minute. So wait, no, you. Oh, so what? Tell me again where it is. It's not what I heard. What's
now
the name of it?
it's a north suburb of Chicago. It's about
Right.
25 miles.
And what's it called again?
It's called Highland Park,
Highland
Illinois.
Park.
Yes, Highland.
Oh, yes, we know Highland Park.
Yes.
You're a neighbor of Mr. Muslin.
Yes.
Correct.
He lives in Glencoe,
Oh, okay, right down the street.
right down the street. Give him a
Yeah.
wave, Mr. Oh, Mr. Muslin's got his camera off, but
Okay.
he'll give you a wave. Okay, Highland Park. Now I know it. How old are you?
I'm 67.
Okay, and how did you hear about us?
My friend down the street, Alan Goldman, uh, he participated in this chat room, and
Okay,
he gave me the Zoom and the link, and this is my first time, obviously.
okay, and if you want to put your email address in the chat window afterwards,
Okay, I will do
and
that.
you can send it to me if you don't want it to go to everybody, and we'll sign you up and make sure that you get a notice before each meeting. So,
Okay. And
when will
and
you?
and well, first of all, I don't know if I'm in the right group because I don't know if
Ah,
mine's advanced or intermediate. So you could tell me that after I tell you my story.
okay. Well, first of all, tell me your Gleason score.
7.
Is that a 4+3 or a 3+4?
4 + 3.
Okay, and what's your PSA?
Right now, it's 0.01.
Okay, but sounds like you've had some treatment.
Yes, I was diagnosed the summer of 22, and I've gone through radiation treatment, finished that in February, and currently on hormonal therapy.
Okay, well, if you're on, and is the hormone therapy associated with the radiation?
Yes. So
And how long are you scheduled to be on that hormone therapy for in total?
for 24 months.
You're in the right group. You're in
Okay.
the right group. Okay,
Okay.
that's all right. That's what we need to know.
Yeah, the
Now that we
can.
know you're in the right group, we'll ask you the rest of the
Okay.
questions because
You could ask.
otherwise I was going to throw you off to Peter Kafka,
All right.
who you can
Thank you for
see
that.
here. But you're in the right group. So
Uh,
when were you first diagnosed?
July of 22.
July of 22. And what was your Gleason was 4+3, right?
Yes.
And what was your PSA when you were diagnosed?
It was about 7.5, but I was on a drug called Propecia, which artificially
Right,
lowers your PSA score. So um,
right.
it went from 4.0 to 7.5 in 6 months.
Okay. And where did you decide to get treated?
At Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. I had my radiation down in Arizona at the Mayo Clinic. I
Oh,
had
did you?
radiation for about, I think I had about 28 sessions.
And who was your rad onc?
Uh, his name was Dr. Shield.
Yeah, we know of Dr. Shield. I think is
Yeah,
that who
he's.
you had, Jerry? Was that your guy? No. Okay.
No, I had trials.
That's right. Right. But we know of Shields. So I'm curious why you are in you're doing 24 months of hormone therapy, because that's not usual with a 4+3. Something else, there's something else going on that we don't know about
Well,
yet.
it spread to a lymph node.
Ah, aha.
Yes.
And when did they find that out?
When I did a PET scan last summer.
Before you started the
Yes, yes.
radiation. Okay.
After the biopsy, I did a PET scan
Ah,
and a lymph
okay.
node. Yeah.
So I am guessing, since you said there are about 28 sessions, that you probably had 4 or 5 sessions of SBRT and about 20 sessions to your pelvic girdle.
You have to explain to me what that is. They hit me in 3 different spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So normally what they would do if they knew that you had radiation, if they knew that you had a positive pelvic node, is that they would radiate you right across your pelvis from hip to hip, from side to side. And they'd use a relatively lower dose there, what they call IMRT, and they do that in around 20 fractions. And then in addition, they radiated your prostate, and they did that with more intense radiation, which they probably used on the prostate and the prostate bed. And that's called SBRT. And
Okay.
that's how you finished up having somewhere around 25, 26, 27
Right.
radiation.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
what made you go to Mayo in Phoenix?
I have a place down in Arizona, which I go down, which we're down there during the winter months. So it was more convenient for me to do it down there, because if I did it at Northwestern in Chicago, I would have to drive about 45 minutes in the snow every day. So I decided to have it down in Arizona. Uh, the Mayo Clinic was only 15, 20 minutes from my home down there. So
Okay,
it made
that's
a
what
lot
I
more
figured.
convenient. Yeah.
So you're in Scottsdale, or
Yes. Yes.
where
Scottsdale.
you're in Scottsdale? Okay,
Yes.
because I'm talking to you from deep southern Arizona,
What
about
part?
200 miles south of Scottsdale. Um, so I live here all year round as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now what we'd like to know is, how are you managing on the hormone therapy? How long, tell us first of all, how long have you been on the hormone therapy so
Uh,
far?
about 13 or 14 months.
How are
Yeah.
you managing? It's starting to get tough at that point.
It's getting tougher. With the sweats, I have sweats every 45 minutes. Uh, and and I'm sure a lot of you have gone through it. Like your skin crawls for the first 2 minutes and then you start sweating.
Ah, we're going to take care of that, Richard. We're going to take care of that.
Please
Your
do.
Look, your fellow buddy from Glencoe has got his arm up in the air. Can you see that? Can you see somebody holding their wrist up to you? Do
Yes,
you,
yes,
yes?
yes.
Mr. Muslim, would you like to talk to your fellow Highland Parker about what you've got on your wrist?
Sure, Rick, be happy to. This is called an Embr wave, EMBR wave, and it actually cools off a nerve inside your wrist, and it stops a hot flash in its tracks.
Really?
Yeah, EMBR wave. I'll put it in the chat window for you.
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
But it works, and it works really good at night as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, it wakes me up during the night. And then when I wake up, I have to go to the bathroom. So that's 4 or 5 times a night. So,
It's tough.
Actually, I can. This is Jerry Burr.
actually, I went through a trial period with the Embr labs for that device
Right.
to see if it helped prostate cancer victims, because prior to this, it was only used for menopausal women, and
Right.
I can
Right.
report that it is the best thing. You should already have it on your arm right now.
Oh, I'm sorry I went 14
Now,
months without it. Okay.
now look, I have to say, let us just say, Jerry, and you don't know this, but we actually sent probably somewhere between 30 and 50 guys to Embr for that trial, when it happened. And so we've been working with Embr a long time. And by the way, Richard, if you put in AnCan 50, I put it in the chat window, you should get a $50 discount. But I think the best place to get it is Costco, where it's even cheaper anyway. That's what I understand. I'm
Okay.
not sure. Now,
Thank you for
I
that.
will say
Appreciate it.
this. There are people in this group tonight who aren't so big on the Embr wave because it hasn't worked that well for them. So it doesn't work for everybody. So we don't do branded promotions. We make an exception for Embr because no one else makes a competitive product, and we think it's a great product, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Okay.
There
It's worth
are
a
some
try.
other, definitely worth a try. They are, I think the sticker price is about $300. They have different settings, as David mentioned. So you have a daytime setting and an evening setting. Is anybody here got one that didn't work for them and they're interested in selling it? Do we have any Embr rejects here?
They have a 30-day money back guarantee from Embr.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just trying to help two people out. Somebody who didn't find it useful and somebody who's looking for one. You know, I'm making a market. That's what they taught us to do at the University of Chicago. You know, make a market. So
So let me ask you a question for
yes.
those that are on hormonal therapy. Does it get tougher as the time goes on? Or is it pretty much the same for the whole time period you're
Well,
on it?
we've got a couple of our hands up, so I'll let Frank Fabish answer whether it gets tougher as it goes on.
The simple answer is yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And you have to mentally be prepared for it and be committed to the treatment, and know the benefit of it. And you'll find it out as you tune in on these Zoom calls. But just a point on the Embr device. Costco, in their monthly magazine, if you are a member, they have an article this month in their monthly magazine, and I didn't realize it, but it was developed by 4 or 5 MIT students, and they're continuing to do research after they got funded with their company. But it was interesting to see how they developed it. And then they have a side box about how they extended it to prostate cancer patients, and the success of it. So it was interesting reading, having already used the device, and it has benefited me. It doesn't eliminate my hot flashes, but it reduces the frequency and the intensity as long as you catch it at the very beginning of the cycle.
Okay.
And
So
in
there's a
my
button to,
case,
so there's a button to push when you feel it coming on?
yeah,
Okay.
yes, you can set it for the amount of time you want it to cool.
Mm-hmm.
You can also, if you want to, you can set a sleep cycle where you can have it run for whatever length of time. You can have it run all night,
Yeah.
or you can, you're going through one right
We're going
now.
through right now. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sweating.
Sorry, I'm laughing, having gone through it. I benefit because when my hot flash starts, the hairs on my head will actually start to bristle.
Yeah.
So I know when to push that button immediately. And as I said, it helps reduce it in length and in intensity.
So
Okay. Thank you for that.
let's hear from Jim Marshall, and then we've got a couple of other things, and we'll move into the questions. Jim Marshall, what would you like to add?
Richard, anyway, I sleep. Okay. Um, then I have a fan that will blow essentially on my face all the time. Okay, even if it is cold outside, it still blows and it helps.
Yeah.
Number two, exercise, aerobic exercise, especially on the fatigue.
Hold on a minute. We're going there. We haven't gotten there yet. We're
Oh, okay.
going to exercise big time.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
next
Well,
question. So, since I got preempted here, what are you doing in the way of exercise, Mr. Schneider?
I try to work out 3-4 times a week. I have a personal trainer 2 times a week. So I have a Peloton, which I try to do it as often as I can. I don't have the drive I used to, to do it.
Right.
It's getting harder and harder for
Yeah.
me once I'm on the bike.
Yeah.
What I was able to do 3 months ago, I can't do now. So I'm just working
So
through it. I play
here's
golf, I
here's
walk.
the here's the issue. Because we've got a few Peloton riders in here. We've got some Chicago bike riders. It is really, really important to do both aerobic and weight resistance exercise.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
And, if possible, 5 or 6 times a week, minimum of around 150 minutes. Of that 150 minutes, and I just had put an article in this week, and I forget what the number was, but I think of the 150 minutes, you need about 30 to 40 minutes of intense exercise. But if you can do it, you're going to feel much better. There's going to be a lot of guys who will tell you the benefit of exercise. We won't ask them this week because we're running a little late, but I can assure you that there's a lot of people that will tell you. And once, well, if you can catch up with Mr. Muslin whilst when he's in Glencoe, and you're in Highland Park, maybe the two of you can even exercise together, because
Yeah.
it's so much better when you got an exercise buddy.
Yeah, it's true.
And maybe the two of you send him a note, David, as to how to get hold of you, or he'll send you a note in the chat window. Okay?
Yep.
And because I cannot tell you how much easier it is to exercise if you have an exercise buddy. You're more inclined to do it, you exercise better, and maybe even David, you can do your Pelotons at the same time in the same Peloton class.
Maybe it'd be easier to take a ride down Sheridan Road, though.
Yes.
I'll send you my contact information.
Okay, thank you, David. Appreciate that.
Okay, and we've put the Embr. I put the Embr thing in the URL in the chat window, and look in your Costco magazine. Anything else anybody would like to say to Richard? And Richard, keep coming back. We meet every week.
Okay.
How about social supports, Richard?
Not much. My wife is very supportive, of course. And again, I have a friend down the street that sometimes joins these chats, and I talk to him, but that's about it. And that's why I joined this group, I'm thinking of joining this group. Just talk to men that are going through the same issues that I am.
We're gonna hook you up with some good men. We already found one who's a neighbor. We got another guy, Harry. I don't know where Harry Spieler is, but he's somewhere in your area. We've got a few Chicago guys, and one thing that we're very proud of is that about 30% or more of the people in this group finish up making long-term friends out of this group.
Wonderful.
So welcome, and we're real pleased to have you.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. All right, I'm going to move into the questions, and the first person up is Mark Valens because we missed him last week. Mr. Valens.
I'm just want to see who else has dealt with urinary problems. It's been 4 years since I finished my radiation, and just starting about 6 months ago, I couldn't always pee when I wanted to. I get split stream. I can't empty my bladder all the way, so I have to get up and pee many times during the night. My urologist did a urethrogram, and she found a penile stricture, which she thought was the problem. And so she did a surgery for urethral dilation and puts in a balloon with chemicals in it that's supposed to open up the stricture, and it hasn't helped. And the urologist wants me to self-catheterize 4 times a day. And I was doing that for a little while, but I can't get a catheter to go in sometimes. And the last time I tried, it hurt so bad, and then I had so much blood, I'm afraid to do it again. The best guess is, I had a TERP, and then I had all that radiation, is that my prostate is so messed up, the catheter doesn't want to go through it. But anyways, I'm just wondering if anybody else has dealt with urinary problems and what they've done about it.
Who would like? We have a number of people. Who would like to go first, Peter Kafka?
Yeah, Mark, my urinary problems were up front before I had any treatment. So I was on catheters for 7.5 months. So yeah, I had total blockage the night of my biopsy. It wasn't to pee again for 7.5 months. So I elected to have surgery. I had to have surgery because the radiation docs wouldn't go near me. And that cleared it up. I had, tumor blockage that was stopping me from urinating. But I went to a great surgeon. I have a good friend in Napa Valley who's going through what you're going through right now. He's been in and out of the ERs in the last number of months, both in Canada and the US. Can't travel because of all this stuff. Yeah, when you get strictures like that from radiation burns and stuff, it comes back to haunt you several years later. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that feeling when you can't thread a catheter in there, and what to do. I mean, where do you live?
Southern Oregon.
Yeah, I would go down to, if I was in your situation, I'd go down to UCSF. It's not that far from you.
Yes, I'm talking to Dr. Breyer down there.
Yeah, he's well versed in this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he might be able to help you. I know a number of guys that have done that. You want to get a really top surgeon. Don't mess around with a local urologist or anything on this. You want the best care you can, and they might be able to open it up somehow. Sometimes it requires, going in with some kind of surgical thing rather than just TERP type of stuff, rather than just ream it out. But that would be my take on it. It's not comfortable.
Yeah. My local urologist, she's only been in practice for 7 years. She's really good, but she She's only had 7 years of experience. And she said she could have opened it up for me surgically, but she said most likely you then be incontinent.
Yeah,
So,
you want to go for the best. Get
yeah.
get the best care you can get, and where you are it would probably be UCSF unless you went up to Seattle.
Yeah.
Peter, who is the doctor at UCSF that you're recommending for this?
He said he's talking to Breyer, and yeah, Breyer's
Benjamin
pretty
I
good.
Breyer.
don't
Benjamin Breyer. Yeah.
I don't know Breyer. Is he
Mac Roach recommended him.
okay.
Yeah. I think
I
he's the
have a
head of
feeling.
urology. I think he's the head of urology now, isn't he?
He
When
is.
Peter
He
Carroll
is.
stepped down. Yeah.
Okay. And is he not a urologic oncologist? Does he specialize in like waterworks and stuff like that? Like
It's
Marshall?
urology, not just prostate cancer. He does a lot
Okay,
of
right.
reconstruction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bladder and stuff
okay,
like that. I think he took over for Peter Carroll in terms of
right,
running the show
right.
there.
Okay, okay. I learned something. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think
Um,
he's at Parnassus, I believe.
yeah, I was just gonna say it sounds like he's at Parnassus. Um, yeah. Um, anyone else who has wrestled with these with urinary issues and strictures post treatment on the call tonight?
Yeah, Russ Hoover.
Go ahead, Russ.
I I didn't get it post treatment. I got it because I had what they called severe BPH, and I went to a number of different doctors to try to do my homework. I finally wound up with a guy who I felt comfortable with, and he provided a procedure called holmium laser, and I can't say the last word, nucleation. I think that's the right pronunciation. Basically, it's a rotor-rooter with a laser tip. And what it does, it actually burns away pieces of the inside of the ureter and anything that's obstructing it. And I had that done back in 2020 of March because, like you said, you can't pee. And it got so painful, I couldn't even stand up. That is where I found out that I had cancer because before that, my PSA was always like 3 or 4. I had no symptoms. And as part and parcel of that procedure, they took a biopsy and I came back, 4.4 plus 5.9. And I don't know what new procedures are out there, but that is the one that I elected and it worked for me. And that's going on almost 3.5 years of no problems for me.
Did you say the name again?
Holmium, it's HOLMIUM, laser. I'll spell the word for you because I can never pronounce this word for some reason. ENUCLEATION.
Can you put it in
Okay,
the chat window for us, Russ? That
Yeah,
would be the easiest.
yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you, thank you.
Did nobody else?
Sylvester,
I'm sorry. Let me ask.
Sylvester, yeah.
Didn't nobody else ever heard of this one?
Nope,
Really?
never heard of it.
Yeah,
Because it
you're a
was
unicorn.
no.
Sylvester, I know has had issues. Sylvester, speak up, please.
Got to turn your mic on, Sylvester.
Right. We don't see you and your mic's off. There you go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
For 40 years, I've had stricture problems. 20 years before my diagnosis of prostate cancer, I had stricture problems. Now, what I was told, they didn't know what developed the stricture, but they went in and removed the scar tissue prior to my diagnosis for prostate cancer. When I had my prostatectomy, I developed a second stricture. And since that time, I had a prostatectomy 24 years ago. And since that time, I've still suffers from stricture problems. And periodically, about every 10 years, I have to go and have the scar tissue removed. And daily, I catheterize myself to keep the strictures open. And that's about it. I'm on no medication for the stricture, but I do the catheterization every day. And I must say, it's very easy. The catheterization is just like drinking a glass of water. There's no pain, and I'm glad I'm getting the treatment. And if you need the treatment, I urge you to get it because I was in the hospital many times when I could not urinate. And believe me, if the strictures close, it is pure agony. So whatever your doctor advises you to do, I strongly urge you to follow the direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvester. And let's hear from Carlos, and then we have to move on because we've got a lot of people tonight. Carlos, Dr. Carlos.
Hey, Mark. I just wanted to reiterate something that sort of has come up indirectly, that to always get a third opinion. You're being directed to a great place, UCSF. I don't know if they have, usually when you go one place like that, they only want to assign you to one doc. And so getting a second opinion there may or may not work unless you go to the urology department and then go to a reconstructive component of it, which I think is the right place for you to be. So I think that's a great find for you on that account. The other item to remember is that whoever talks to you about doing these procedures, you need to secure the fact that they are doing this procedure themselves. At higher learning institutions, a lot of stuff does get handed off to their chief resident or somebody else, and it's like, yeah, the guy who knows everything about everything said it can be done, but the guy who's doing it is practicing, and don't fall into that. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's I'm gonna keep moving along here.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Pleasure, Mark. Dr. Jack.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to be brief because it's an extension of what we've already discussed tonight. And it has to do with, I've been on 6 months on darolutamide and almost 4 months of Orgovyx. And I just find I'm getting, weaker and weaker. I've always been very athletic. I'm, run a bunch of marathons, ski. I've always been in good shape, but my muscles are turning into mush, and I'm getting weaker and weaker. And you talk about working out 100, 150 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I guess I haven't pushed that hard. I work out a couple of hours, doing resistance training 3 times a week, and I really have to push to 5 or 6 times a week or 7 times a week. Very hard. I mean, you're saying that, Rick, and I don't know if it's possible at 84 to be able to do that, because I feel not only the fatigue and the exhaustion, but I'm getting progressively weaker and weaker and weaker. And I saw my internist today, and he's known me for years. He looked at my body. He said, "Oh, my God, sarcopenia. What happened to you?" And I told him, and I hadn't seen him in 5 months or so. He said, "Oh, my." He said, "What are you going to do about it?" I said, "I'm not too sure. I'll talk about it with my group tonight." So I just wondered, can you really, at 84 years of age, when you're getting doublet therapy, really regenerate the progressive sarcopenia and the ensuing weakness? And can you really turn things around, or at least maintain the muscle integrity without falling into a mush pile? Because it's awfully scary when I look at myself, and other people who know me look at me, and it's, God, what happened? It's Jesus. So can it be reversed, or is it just you young guys in your 60s and 70s, I guess I call that relatively young, who are able to do that? And can a guy 84 years, I know there's one guy, 86 in this group, and he keeps talking about doing all kinds of miracles, and I don't know how an exception he is to the rule, but what's the general consensus on what can be done realistically?
Who would like to take that one on?
Can you afford to take a drug holiday, or do you have to stay on
No, it's
stuff?
too early in the game. I've got metastatic disease to pulmonary lymph nodes, and a lumbar vertebrae and a rib. So I'm gonna do everything I can to go with the subscription.
Okay. Well, the drugs are cumulative, so they're going to knock you down. I mean, short of that, I don't know what the answer is.
You don't know what it is other than take a holiday.
So,
Yeah.
Julian, go ahead.
What kind of exercise are you doing, Dr. Jack?
Well, usual resistance. I go through all the machines and free weights, and
Oh, you do free
I
weights,
used
yeah.
yeah I used to do high interval training when I was able to. Now I can't seem to do it. I mean, I
Right,
can,
right,
but I can't. It's just
yeah,
so I'll go ahead and I'll go on the treadmill, elevate it to 5 and 10, and then 15,
yeah.
and in terms of incline, and I'll put it up to 3.5, about as much as I can do. I used to be able to do, more. I used to run a lot, marathons, and ski for 50 years. So I know what exercise is all about. I just don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
How,
too
how much
tired.
longer are you going to be on those two drugs?
Well, I'm 6 months in on Nubequa and 4 months in on Orgovyx. So you want me to
Right,
do 2 years?
right. Yeah, I was on it for
So,
2 years, and I was fatigued as fatigue could get. It was truly rough. I didn't want to go exercise, but I made myself go exercise because, during this time, you need to keep your energy levels up, rather than, I don't want to do it because I went through many of those instances, but I did it, and when I came off of it, I was able to get better faster than if I hadn't.
Oh,
George,
yeah.
George, how are you? I mean, you're a very athletic, a comparable age to Dr. Jack. How are you managing? Because I think you're on
Yeah,
uh, hormone therapy now, are you
yeah,
not?
I'm on Lupron. I'm going tomorrow for my another 6 month shot. I'm 83, um, and I might be fortunate to be living in a very active community. But I play 2 hours of tennis twice a week.
Wow.
I just finished a 6 week course in which was twice a week in water aerobics, which really exercised all the limbs, uh, without impact. And then, if you want to believe it, I do once a week line dancing,
Good for
line
you.
dancing. So that's my athletic program. I should be doing some weights, which I know I should be doing. I hate to lift weights, but I should get on it. But anyway, that's my athletic program, and I'm 83.
Yeah, well,
And
Right. So a couple of things I want to say. First of all, to George, before I forget, don't get a 6 month shot, George. Get a
well,
3 month or a 4 month. Don't get a 6 month shot.
why is
Okay,
that?
because they don't necessarily hold through the 6 months. They're not reliable in the fifth and sixth month.
Well,
And we
I still get the height flashes, not as often as
that
they
that
say.
that's because in the last 2 months there's some in there, but our experience with them, we would nobody would take on. We can't give you medical advice, but we've seen too often where the 6 month shot doesn't last 6 months. You're
All right.
better off with a 4 month shot. Go with a 4 month shot once every 4 months. It's a lot
All right.
more reliable.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So what I would say, Jack, is that you got to get a little more resistance exercise in, even if it's only 20 to 30 minutes a day. Sorry, a little more aerobic exercise in, even if it's only 20, 30 minutes a day. And that daily aerobic exercise is going to start to help you. And you've got to build on it. But and the water aerobics is a great idea if you can find a water aerobics class to
Oh,
do, because
it's
it's
here.
low
It's here.
resistance. You really are working. You're with a group of other people, so they're making you do something. I'm sure where you live, it shouldn't be too hard to
No,
find a
we
water
have classes
aerobics
out at the
class.
pool. We have classes where I live.
Right.
I live in,
So
yeah.
I think that's a great idea because that mixes aerobic and resistance. But I think that that daily regime, once you get into it, it's going to be very hard to begin with. It's going to make a difference. It may take a month, but at the end of that month, we'll be talking to you in the beginning of November, and we're going to hear a different story. I used to, I mean, most of you guys know, I did this for 28 months or more, 30 months. I used to go row and come home and go sleep for 40 minutes when I got done with my rowing. Because I was so fatigued, but then I was good for a lot of the rest of the day. It's okay if that happens because you're getting the benefit. So don't feel like, oh, it makes me so tired that I got to sleep. Okay, Kazun. I mean,
What,
you'll be fine.
what about the muscle
So,
mass? What about the
well,
sarcopenia? I mean,
I think a
can you
lot of it
regain
depends.
that?
I my preference, my druthers, get on a rowing machine because the rowing machine is really going to make you use all the muscles in your body from your toes all the way up to your neck. And then if you're doing, if you can get onto a rowing machine, low resistance to begin with, if you can manage 10 minutes or 15 minutes and build it up, that's going to use all your muscles. There are not too many exercises that make you use the whole body. Now, water aerobics may do. That might well do, especially if you're having to tread water whilst you're doing the aerobics. But running doesn't. Cycling's pretty good, but you're not using your upper body to the same extent that you are when you row.
Can
But
I offer
that's about
something?
it. Yeah, but quickly because we got to move. We got to move along, Jimmy.
I'll do it quickly. I mean, Jack, my feeling is always that the exercise that you should do is the exercise you're willing to do. And if you have a long history of distance running and skiing and stuff like that, perhaps your experience with weight training doesn't go back years and years. And you're older now, and I would think that if you can dedicate yourself to some consistent weight training, it doesn't have to be intense, it just has to be frequent. And if you do it frequently, and you may take to that. My point is that if you take to that and you don't want to row and you don't want to swim and you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that, pick the thing that you like to do the most, even if you still don't like it. The thing that you don't like to do the least. Try to seek that out. That's my only advice.
Good advice. Thank you. Okay,
Okay,
Jack.
we gotta keep moving, but we can come back to this every week if you like, because it's always you can't stop talking enough about the exercise. And I know a bunch of you let me know that you were appreciative of what I put in the reminder about exercise as well. So we keep hammering that message home. Okay, let's go to Peter K first of all. Peter Kafka, go ahead, Peter. Give us an update.
Okay, I met with Dr. Antanarakis today, did a blood test last Friday. So what I'm going to say applies to me. Don't extrapolate it to you, because where I am in this crazy journey is different probably from probably all of you. I finished a year of immunotherapy, Keytruda, in July. So now I've been off of all treatments for 2 months, and I feel pretty darn good. And the name of the game is management. It's not cure. It's not a long-term durable remission for me. It's going to keep coming back. But Dr. Antanarakis and I were on the same page. I'm going to meet with Dr. Schultz on the phone, on a virtual call on Thursday, and get his buy-in on this. So what we're looking at is my PSA is kind of doubling every month to 6 weeks or so. It's now 0.56. It was 0.29 6 weeks ago. And what I'm thinking of, and Dr. Antanarakis kinds of feels the same way, that, hey, let's see if you can get 6 months out of this. So we're thinking the trigger point for a PSMA scan might be, contrary to the opening comments this evening, my next PSMA scan might be between 1 and 1.5. I've already had 3 PSMA scans, and all of them led to some treatment, and the next one probably will too, but I think we can afford to wait a while. I'm not going to chase this. And what's next? My gut feeling is to stay with the known rather than the unknown, which means try going back on Keytruda. And Antanarakis feels that I should know within a couple of treatments whether the thing is re-challenging with Keytruda is going to work or not. If it doesn't, we'll try a PARP inhibitor. We talked a little bit about, I wanted to bring up a couple of meetings ago, this drug that Johnson & Johnson came out with called Akega, Akeega, which is a combo drug with niraparib and Zytiga, one pill.
Apalutamide.
No, they said maybe it is. I don't know. They said it was Zytiga and niraparib.
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's apalutamide and niraparib.
Okay, because it comes with
It's Zytiga, that's
it's
for sure.
because it comes with prednisone. Anyway, but
Then you're right. I stand
the side effect profile is pretty nasty, and we talked about it. He's not in favor of these combo drugs. He feels that they were approved because you got a progression-free survival, but overall survival is about the same. And he says he felt it's just not worth dealing with the nasty side effects of this stuff. So in the research I've done, I tend to agree with him. So maybe if Keytruda doesn't work again, maybe we'll go to olaparib. But I'm pretty relaxed with this. I mean, I'm willing to go. I'm not nervous about the PSA climate at this point. I'm just I'm enjoying being off of things and having some energy and just kind of riding it out and seeing where it goes. So that's my story.
So, Peter, one question I have for you is, when was the last time you were sequenced?
That came up too. We talked about that, and it was about 3 years ago, and I'm due for another one, but we'll wait a while and again let my PSA get up around 1, to 1.5, and then do a blood a liquid biopsy and see what it says.
Right, because the PARP inhibitor is only effective if you're still showing a somatic BRCA.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So same thing. Let it go between 1 and 1.5. And the other interesting thing is, my local doc, who's a generalist. He's a hematologist, medical oncologist, wonderful man. Oddly enough, he went to school at the University of Minnesota, and he and Dr. Antanarakis have been talking, and of course, I'm the patient of both of them, and my name comes up. But Dr. Antanarakis has offered him a job, and he hasn't signed the contract yet, but he could well be moving over to this way in February, which would. So I'm going to be going back to Maui in about 3 weeks, and I'll talk to him, and I know all the players there, and I'm going to have to do some scrambling to see who, there aren't too many medical oncologists who are worth their salt in the Hawaiian Islands, but I'll see if I can come up with one who can take his place for local treatments if I've got to go back on Keytruda or whatever. So that's an interesting twist in the thing. But Dr. Schultz, I think, has a license to practice in Hawaii, so he can call some shots from California too. So I'm covered.
Anybody have any questions for Peter?
It's John. I want to thank Peter for buying me lunch.
And it was wonderful to meet your wife too. I wish I could have spent a little more time with her. I would have loved to have told her about my tutoring of a Syrian refugee in a
Oh,
camp
yeah,
in
she would have
Beirut.
loved it.
Yeah, I'll send you an email and describe it to you, and you can forward it to her.
Yeah,
She's
and
all right. And
we
we
also learned
hearing about your partner.
we also learned that that Peter had dinner with Len as well.
Len and
So,
Joanne. Yep, Len and Joanne.
and Joanne.
And Joanne, yeah.
Great.
And I also had lunch in a 4-mile cruise around the Princeton campus with Dr. Bob and Missy Gromankin. Had a wonderful time with them, and I also spent an hour with Carl Foreman. I took an Uber over from Princeton and spent a wonderful time, and I think I was helpful for him in getting over the fear of having visitors and so forth. It was pretty cool.
Great. So I want to just correct, and I stand corrected. It is abiraterone and not apalutamide. Both of those are Janssen drugs. Peter, it's the 1.5 is not in contradiction. When D'Amico and Carroll, etc., are talking about doing a PSMA test at 0.2, that's for people who have not identified where the metastasis is. It's a very different situation to your situation, where you have you know you're metastatic, you've identified it, and so there's no contradiction there at all.
So just one other note of interest that's probably going to come down to us shortly is that J&J is going to drop the Janssen name for their pharma, and they're going to go with Johnson & Johnson, something about specialty drugs, or some way, but they're going to tag it to Johnson & Johnson rather than Janssen, and they're going to let the Janssen name go for their pharma.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Peter, or can we move on? Okay, let's go to Dr. Carlos, who we haven't heard from for a long time.
Hello. Do you happen to recall where I left you in my long saga? I believe I was asking at that time for takers on ureter issues from radiation. I think is where I left it.
Hold on a minute and let me look and see. The last note I have was radiation therapy to your chest in the end of 2019. I can't believe it's that long, but it might be.
No. Yeah, I guess I haven't spoken up a whole lot with particular questions, but ultimately, just to summarize, hopefully in 1 minute or less, I had developed a ureteral stricture between my kidney and my bladder, and I was requesting assistance from anybody who had input with regard to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen too often, but it did to me from previous radiation therapy to those lymph nodes. Ultimately was treated with about every other month stent placements, which became quite tiresome because they would reinfect with a very common bacteria that nobody looks for because typically it's not a big pathogen. Bottom line is that after almost a year, I said, you know what, it's got to come out. I need to have a revision. I did go see a urologist who is a reconstruction urologist, at Mayo, and Dr. Tyson tried to do a laparoscopic revision, had too much to work through. They actually opened me up, did a complete bladder revision, and my waterworks are working great. A good thing, because and this happened over the course of 2022. Unfortunately, last summer, I sustained a right acetabulum fracture where a lot of my metastasis was located in my hip. And after a year of limping around and my docs realizing it was not going to get better, I went on a search for a orthopedic doctor who originally I'd seen shortly after the injury, and he said, "Yeah, give it about 6 months. If it's not better, come back." So I saw him in March. He said, "Yeah, let's plan this for summer." July comes around, he takes a look at it again. He says, "You know, it's a little too hot for me. Let me have you see some guys in Phoenix." Third and second and third opinions, neither of them wanted to do anything for me until I was completely disabled, and one would do a reconstruction. I'm saying, why are we waiting? If I'm a better candidate now, let's keep looking. So one of them said, "You know, your problem is a fracture problem. That's where your pain's coming from. Your hip joint doesn't really need to be replaced." So he referred me to somebody back in Tucson, of all places. Went to see him, trauma doctor. He says, "Yeah, actually, I can put a screw in that and stabilize it, and that'll probably take care of it. But if you need a total hip, I don't do that very often. Let me send you to a trauma reconstructionist who does." Ultimately saw him this summer, about 6 weeks ago. He did the screws, fixated my brake, and did a total hip. All I can say is anybody who's considering getting a hip reconstruction, it's amazing what they can do these days in terms of the amount of downtime you're going to end up with, which is almost none. Pain control after 2 weeks, I was down to nothing. Taking Tylenol if I needed it, and NSAID if I needed it. But at this point now, rehabbing, he's saying, you know, just go back to doing what you used to do. Things will stretch out. It'll take about 6 months before you're getting back to where you need to be. So I do notice that I don't have the strength or the endurance, and that's to be expected because I was laid up doing a lot more laying down and sitting down than I've ever done in my life. Cancer-wise,
So let me just interrupt on that one. I mean, I personally know that it's at least 6 to 9 months to get the strength back. Because I've had both hips replaced here in Tucson, and I notice it through what I do with the leg press. And of course, you've got to wait enough time so it's stabilized before you start putting too much weight with the leg press. But in both sides, it took me well over 6 months until I could leg press about the same amount. So don't be too impatient.
You know, at 2 weeks out, when I was actually feeling like I could actually walk around for 5 minutes, I dropped a text to my doc and said, "Hey, will I be able, or when can I start training for a marathon?" And he writes back, "Give it 8 weeks." And I wrote him back, says, "You know, I'm glad to hear that because I've never run a marathon and I'm not sure I ever will." And my wife just looks at me saying, "You know, you shouldn't be joking around with the guy like that." It's like, you know, I was really asking a serious question because of what I was doing was pushing to say, how long before I can truly expect to start pushing it? Is what you just said. When can I really start putting pressure on that and really trying to build back up again? So now I know that. Give me another week and a half, and we'll see where things go at that point. But he said, no PT. Don't worry about PT right now. Just let it go right now.
Yeah. So when did you have the hip? When did they give you a new hip?
That happened August 17th.
Okay. Take your time. You'll be there. Anterior? Could they do it anterior?
Anterior approach, much easier to heal from. They basically don't go cutting through muscle and things they
Right,
used to do. They just basically
right.
make an opening and stretch things open, and that's what
That's
hurts the most
exactly
is the
right.
stretching
I've
business.
I've had two anteriors, one with a robot, and I just wondered if they were able to put the screws in that fracture anterior as well, because that meant
It's interesting. The pelvis stabilizing screws came in through the right beside my sacrum in the back,
okay.
right over the crest. They came straight down through, and it's like, all right, it's all guided. They push a wire through, and then the screw
Right,
goes right over the wire. It's a
right.
pretty cool. It's like you got to have me stand into one of these surgeries. It sounds really interesting what you're doing.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah.
then they opened me up and did the other side, and he said, yeah, the capsule on that joint did need to be replaced. This is a good time to do it. I've already got you down. He did a total hip and was happy to say I had bleeding bone when I scraped out the cartilage cup, and that means that you probably will heal that in place. But just in case, he puts 6 more screws into my pelvis to stabilize that.
Who was it that did it, Carlos?
Uh, Jordan Smith.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us about your cancer.
So last fall, I started off with a PSA that's in the 1.1 range. In January, it starts bumping up to 2.5. I talked to Schultz. He says, get started on Keytruda. What are you waiting for? So I did. I went through 4 rounds of it. Every time I get PSA checked, it goes up 2.5, 3.0, 3.8. 6 months into it, 4th Keytruda dose, my doc who give me I get my Keytruda here in Tucson with the advice from 2 other doctors, one from Mayo and from Scholl's, is that it bumped all the way up to 4.6 in just before surgery. And nobody really knows what to do about this. Do we do surgery? Do we wait? My orthopod said, I'd rather not have anything having to do with any kind of radiation, even if it's local, with Pluvicto. And so I said, all right, fine. You know what? Let's repeat my PSA. It's dropped 4.6 to 2.6. I said, well, I don't know what happened there, but I'll take it. And we bought some time. I'll repeat my PSA at the end of the week. We'll see if it's bouncing back up again. But 7 weeks into it, I am actually due to plunge into Pluvicto in about 2.5 weeks and set up for a 6-month round. That's where things are for me at this point. My PSMAs have all been steady. There's been no increase. It's just metastatic disease.
Could it have been the Keytruda that because I mean,
that's a really good question.
And and the reason I ask is because maybe since you're down to 2.6, it may be worth having another Keytruda. You tolerate it well and not start the Pluvicto yet.
I did tolerate it relatively well after the first week. That's when I usually have my issues, primarily GI and constipation kind of things. And I started to figure out how to manage that. But my ortho here is saying it now, basically you've had 4 rounds and your numbers just keep going higher. And so last time I saw him, August 25th, actually I saw him and his assistant. It dropped to 2.6, and this is post-op. So a week after surgery. What that had to do with it, only heaven knows. Is it just for some reason 6 months before I actually showed a response to Keytruda? Nobody really can answer that, unfortunately. I think if I ask Schultz, he's going to say, get back on it.
Peter, go ahead.
The reason.
Go ahead.
The reason that I had moved toward that was to avoid the Pluvicto if I could, and the only justification was that I had moderate, uh, what do I
Let's,
call that?
Alice, let's hear what Peter has to say.
Yeah, yeah, we've talked already. I had the same experience. After 3 Keytrudas, my numbers kept going up. My local doctor in Tanaraka said, "Oh, it's not working." But when I went back to Hawaii, sure enough, it dropped just like yours did. It just plummeted from 7.5 down to 2 something.
Yeah.
So I went. So Schultz to me said, "Hey, go back on Keytruda." I mean, Schultz's mantra is have patience, and if it's going to work, sometimes it takes a little while, so don't get discouraged by it. So I can't tell you for sure that's what it is, but it sure was for me.
Okay. And I do recall you had mentioned that to me when I had asked
Yeah.
you about your experience with Keytruda. Yes, June 7th was my last round, my 4th round of Keytruda. And then 2 months later, we see a change. 2.5 months later, we see this sudden drop after a rise in the middle.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. We pulled the plug on number 4 because we thought it was going up, but
Yeah.
sure enough, a month later, it plummeted.
Well,
Carlos,
I get
you're
a
a doc.
PSA Friday, and it's
You're a
kind of a
doc,
little
and
bit of a hard sell.
you know it better than anybody. The immune system takes time. It's not, you don't just switch it on and switch it off. And we've got another great example, and a Dr. Schultz patient is somebody who said, "Okay, I'm going to stop. Oh, maybe I'm not going to stop." Goes back on it and finishes up getting a long time out of it. So, rather than plunging into something else which you may not need right now, if it were me, I think I would stick with the Keytruda and see how I do. And maybe it's turned the corner, and maybe you're going to get as much success out of the Keytruda as Peter got. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute on this one?
I will just point out that Dr. Bryce at Mayo, who I went to go see because he's genetics, he wasn't real thrilled about me going on the Keytruda because my microsatellite instability was medium. That was really the only justification. He says, "Well, if they'll give it to you in Tucson, then go for it." But yeah, after that 4th round, he said, "You need to switch over to Pluvicto before something bad happens." Now, it's
Okay.
like it's
Okay.
nice to
I
have
mean,
a couple brains
I was
thinking, but when they don't mesh, then you have an issue.
I was going to ask you if you were MSI high. If
Yeah,
you're
medium.
MSI medium, that's a different. Maybe that puts a different picture on it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But they don't pay me the big bucks. That's what they pay Alan Bryce and Mark Schultz. So
yeah, true. And one thing Bryce did do says, let's just get a liquid biopsy, which I just got results on yesterday, and pretty much microsatellite status not detected, MSI high not detected. P10, the usual nothing targeted for me type of findings, which is a good thing, but unfortunately nothing targeted. I do have one burning issue, which is unfortunately I got a notice that Dr. Bryce is not going to be practicing at Mayo. And he was, I know at some point became chair of the department in the past year, and I think somebody snagged him and pulled him away. And so I'm in between docs. I've asked to be referred to Dr. Singh unless he's no longer practicing, and which raises the question to the group: do we know of a different urologist at Mayo that I can lean on? Oncologist.
my concern with Dr. Singh, and I know we've got 2 people in here who see Dr. Singh, but what I've seen is that he's the antithesis of Dr. Schultz.
Okay.
So he's very much by the book, and he's not sort of, I don't see him coming up with creative solutions. And if he doesn't need to, that's fine, but that would be my feedback. And I don't know, do we know where Dr. Bryce is going?
No, they have not divulged that information. Um, Interesting you say that about Dr. Singh, because that is my problem with my local oncologist. While he's willing to accept the input from others, were it to be his own personal decision and me not advocating for myself, if it hasn't been used for the last 20 years and shows it's got, proven results, he does not want to go there. So it was a bit of a hard sell to get him to give me the Keytruda until I pointed out a couple items, and they said, well, okay, it's worth a try. But getting him back on that ship again might be a real hard sell, but I'll let you know in 2 weeks when I see him.
Okay. I haven't done a very good job tonight because we've still got a bunch of people. I will stay around for as long as it takes for Tom Maloney, Al Wolf, George, and Harry Spieler. But we have
I
to
can wait
move
till
on.
next time, Rick. I can wait till next time. No biggie.
We will, Peter Kafka, will you please put Harry Spieler at the top of the list for next Tuesday?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Harry. Okay, I'm sorry, but we obviously we need to move on. George, what's up with you?
I was a Gleason 9. I just finished 26 radiation treatments at Duke a couple weeks ago. And I would say I feel fine. Tomorrow I'm following up, as I said, for the other Lupron shot, which I guess I'm going to do 4 months now. And they'll do a blood test. The radiation oncologist is going to do a blood test in January to see what's happened. Other than that, I feel fine. I just finished the radiation. It was the computer-guided external beam, which went very well. Because of my colitis, they did the spacer to put a little space between the prostate and the colon, which was very well. No problem with that. Anyway, that's where I am right now, and we just go on.
So you had no issues because, as I recall, you were very concerned around the radiation because you had colitis, and you had no issues.
Well, the colitis seems to have calmed down, and the radiologist actually was concerned and had me do 2 sigmoidoscopies with the gastroenterologist at Duke to get a feeling of how serious was it. And the other one, very important, is the gastroenterologist changed me to Humira from Simponi, which was an injectable, which was a infusible. Now I do an injection every 2 weeks with Humira, and I think that has really helped the colitis. And also because I have rheumatoid arthritis, that drug works for both. So it did very well. So I'm dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, which is pretty much handling it. And I think that was a big one as far as helping with the colitis. But as far as the prostate goes, I get up about 4 or 5 times a night. I find the hot flashes annoying, but not anything that I can't deal with. And so otherwise, I'd say we go on, and I guess I'll be on ADT for, as they said, for probably 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Anything you want to ask us? Anything particular that's come up?
No, I can't say I do at this time. Um, I wonder if, I think probably in January, he may do a scan to see if anything has escaped. The polarography they did showed that nothing had escaped the capsule and no lymph node involvement. But I would imagine he's going to do a scan to see if anything has escaped.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm fine.
Well, what should happen, if anything has gotten out, is that it should be well, no, it won't. I was going to say it should be reflected in the PSA, but it won't if you're on hormone therapy. So yep, scan's the right thing to do. Absolutely. Scan's the right thing to do.
My last blood test, as I was initiating the radiation, was 0.07, and testosterone was 19.
Mm-hmm.
That was after 3 months on Lupron.
Okay. I'm just making a note of that. Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to contribute? And the exercise you're doing, which you told us about, is great. You just got to hang in and keep doing it. It looks like you're doing good. You might want to think about an Embr, because it might take away even those few issues that you're having. And it's
Well,
non-invasive, easy to use. Just saying.
the $300 pain in the wallet is I can tolerate the hot flashes versus the $300 pain.
Okay, there you go. That's the answer. Okay. I see our wolf. Is Tom Maloney still with us or not? Okay, so Peter, if Tom Maloney shows up next week, we need to elevate him, and I'll send him a note and tell him. And our wolf, you could be the last man up.
Okay. Okay. What has happened with me is that the PSA has dropped down to the point where it doesn't register. And so I'm kind of wondering, well, what's the future for me now? What should I be doing? What shouldn't I do? I just don't know enough at this point.
Okay, and what treatment are you doing? You're at Kaiser, correct?
Correct. Okay, I'm on abiraterone, which is only 250 each day, with prednisone, and then the Lupron every 3 months.
So that's what's supposed to happen. The fact that you've gone down to 0 is what the drugs are supposed to do. And so that's a good thing. The issue for you, I think, probably is to, and I assume you're taking that abiraterone in the morning with a low-fat diet?
Correct.
Right. So, what you've got to be doing is exercising a lot, as much as you possibly can, to keep those muscles in good shape, like you've heard from the other guys we've talked about tonight. Eat healthy. Make sure that some of that exercise is weight resistant. Go to the gym with Peter when he's back in Maui, because he's very good at at doing that, and he knows all the exercises you're supposed to do. He's on top of it. How far do you guys live apart from each other?
40
Oh,
minutes.
we're
Yeah, he's over by Susan's. We've gotten together.
yep.
Okay, well, get him to the gym with you and show him the exercises to do, Peter.
Or maybe we'll paddle together or something. Yeah.
Or paddle together. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, paddle together. But this is serious, Al. I mean, we're not just saying it. It's really important. And like I said to David Muslin and Richard earlier on, if you've got a buddy to do it with, it makes it so much easier. Because
Yeah.
Peter calls you and says, "Come on, meet me down at the beach. Let's go paddle." And it's hard to say no, but you need to do it, because if you don't do it with him, you're not going to do it at all, right?
Okay. Well, I work a lot around my yard, and I trim trees, I haul dirt.
Not the same. Not the same. That one doesn't wash in this group.
Oh.
Well, because
Yeah.
you don't maintain that heart rate at an elevated level for 15 or 20 minutes. You work and then you stop, and then you work a little more and then you stop. And that's what
Okay.
you've got to do. I've been hearing people telling me about working around the yard for 15 years. And I don't buy it. Jimmy's still here. He's got his off, but Jimmy will endorse this one. Don't fool yourself with working around the yard. Yes, I'm sure it's good, but it's not the sort of exercise you need to be doing. And if you want to feel good,
Al and I could walk the neighborhood hills in his,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's what you've got to be doing now. So if you're asking us, what do you do now that your PSA has gotten down to not measurable? You do your exercise. Hugely, hugely important. Did you make an appointment with Dr. Hartstock?
I've tried to set that up, but it has not happened yet.
Well, you have to make that a priority. You got to get her onto your team. Okay? I mean, these are the important things to do. Get the right medical team. So, get Dr. Hartstock onto your medical team. All you got to do is make that request, and they will do it at Kaiser.
Okay.
We've done it with enough other people. We know it works. Okay? So you've got to get her on your team, and you've got to do your exercise. Peter, anything else that Al should be doing?
I'll see you toward the end of the month.
Okay. Okay. So stay on the drugs.
Oh yeah. Unless at some point you want to take a holiday. I mean, talk to your oncologist about that. But you probably, I don't know how long you can last for the holiday. We'll see.
Well, but that's why we need Dr. Hartstock on that team, Peter.
Right. But I mean,
Because
I think the fact that you're doing so well, only 250 milligrams of Zytiga, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, but Peter, that's the same as 1,000 if taken regularly.
I know.
Okay, so it's the same. That's the same dose as 1,000. But the fact, the point here is that yes, a holiday may be possible at some point when you've been on for a while, but the doctors in the oncologists don't have that experience versus a genitourinary medical oncologist like Dr. Hartstock, who's in the system. And that's why we're pushing you to bring her in, because when you are ready to take a holiday, she may be an important voice in that. And we're not, we're not just saying this because it needs to appear that way. It's because she has the knowledge, and probably more knowledge than most of the doctors, the oncologists at Kaiser on Maui, in terms of managing prostate cancer.
Okay. Understand.
So, so that it's really, really important keep exercising and to have the right medical team, and the right medical team requires a GU medical oncologist, as everybody in this group will tell you, to have one on your team.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Keep going and good luck, and look out for Peter at the end of the month. Jimmy, you want to add anything about exercise?
Oh, the only thing I ever add is I know how hard it can be, and I know that some guys find it harder than I did. My biggest benefit is that I would have been one of my good lifelong habits, and I had a lot of head of steam, when I went into all this. But I've always told friends of mine that, like I was telling Dr. Jack earlier, when things are tough and you don't want to go, and the older you get, the harder it is. And we get this disease when we're old, and we get on treatments when we're old. And if we don't have some momentum, it's really, really hard. I know. I just tell everybody what you'll do is what you should do. Some guys like to run, some want to bike, some want to swim, some want to lift. But I feel strongly about weightlifting. I think if you don't weightlift when you're old, you are making a big, big mistake. It doesn't have to be heavy weights, whatever it is you can handle. And I'm such a believer in it, and it makes you feel so good. And when you feel yourself being able to be more capable in your everyday tasks, which as we get older, you start to you can't decelerate as well, just stepping off a stair, or, you lose your balance a little bit going to the bathroom or anything else. It really makes you feel good when you feel like you can, run across the other half of that street when you accidentally stepped out in traffic or some stupid thing like I would like to do sometimes. So I'm just a believer. That's all. And all the things that we do to intervene, not just with aging, but everything associated with this disease. The data is just becoming more and more and more. How it delays time to castrate resistance. It extends survival. It extends specific survival. But most importantly, it adds life to the years. I just don't want to outlive my good years. That's all I keep saying. I know this medicine is really good at keeping people alive a long time, but sometimes if you ever go into a nursing home, you find out, how much those last years are worth. Sometimes not really very much. And it's really sad. So whatever we can do to intervene,
Al, I just want to ask, Al Wolf, how are you tolerating the hormone therapy? Do you have much fatigue? Or are you having hot flashes? Are you having muscle pain? Are there any other issues?
No muscle pain. The complaint I have is that the sores or the cuts that I get just don't heal very well. They take months to heal instead of a week or two.
I don't think that has a lot to do, sadly, with the hormone therapy.
Okay.
I think that has to do with age, and we've
I'm sorry,
lost.
Rick, did Al have chemo by any chance?
No,
No chemo?
no,
When I had
no.
chemo, I was getting that kind of a problem. But maybe it could just be age. We never want to chalk it up to that, do we?
You know, I've got a cut on my shin that's been with me for over 8 weeks with cellulitis. It just doesn't want to heal, and
Okay.
that's what happens. You get older, you just don't heal, and we don't have Dr. John on here anymore, or Dr. Jack, or one of the medics to confirm that. But I think that's an issue more related to aging than it is to anything from the hormone therapy, Al. But I'm not a doc, so again, you
Is there
should
some
raise it with your.
is there some sort of diet that would help with that?
Again, it's beyond my that's beyond my knowledge. It's a question. We need one of our docs on here, and they've left. Unless anyone else has any peer information on what they've done to help them heal more quickly. Anybody?
Some people use certain kind of soaps or something to keep their more moisture in their skin. since we dry out as we get old. We're like old cars, you know. We get drier and slower, and we rust and everything else. So anything that'll help. All kinds of things work for different guys.
Okay.
Okay. Well, guys, we're only 15 minutes over, but we didn't get to a couple of guys, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. Anything else anybody want to bring up? Last call. All right. Peter's up next week from Minneapolis, and we'll see you again then. Good night, everybody.
Good night.